All right, magnificent Leo souls, gather close. This isn't just a message, it's a profound revelation. There's been a subtle, unseen force, a quiet drain on your radiant energy, haven't there? Someone or something has been subtly dimming your inner flame. Perhaps they smiled, offering words of camaraderie, while their true intentions whispered a different, much darker story in the cosmic winds. But now, dear Leo, the universe is drawing back the veil, and in this journey we're about to embark on, you will finally see the truth. You'll understand the energetic blueprint, the pattern that has subtly influenced your path, and what you must bravely do now to reclaim the vibrant, powerful essence of your soul, an essence that was once so cleverly manipulated. And listen, there is one sacred truth, one profound insight that will shift everything for you. Do not, under any cosmic circumstance, depart before you hear it. We begin this journey not with fear, but with the quiet strength and deep stillness of a soul, your soul, that is truly ready to confront and embrace its truth. Before we dive into these illuminating waters, I have a request for all you radiant Leos out there. If this message resonates, if you feel that familiar hum of recognition, please take a moment right now to comment below using the template. My Leo light is ready to roar. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Cosmic Wisdom so you never miss these powerful insights tailored just for you. Your participation helps this channel reach more beautiful souls ready for their own awakening. You see, my dear Leos, it was never about an overt curse or a direct attack. No, this was far more insidious, a quiet absorption of your light, as if it were simply theirs for the taking. You don't necessarily need to remember a specific name, because your powerful soul, with its innate wisdom, already holds that energetic memory. Years ago, or perhaps even just recently, a certain individual entered your life. Their purpose, however, wasn't to genuinely love or uplift you, but to enact a far more subtle maneuver, to diminish your light by making you subtly question if you ever truly possessed it. This person didn't scream at you. They weren't openly consumed by jealousy. Instead, they were simply there, always present, like a silent shadow that subtly positioned itself beside your brilliance. Their eyes were often soft, their advice offered precisely at the right moment. Yet, your magnificent Leo soul, ever attuned to authenticity, always sensed a dissonance, a subtle discord in their presence. You, being the compassionate and generous spirit that you are, often found it hard to articulate this unease. Leos, you inherently want to believe the best in others, don't you? You saw a perceived vulnerability in them, and your noble heart reached out to embrace it. You heard a hint of loneliness in their voice, and you instinctively quieted your own vibrant expression so their voice could be heard. You yielded, you understood. You stepped back, once, twice, countless times, until one day you slowly began to realize that the light in that energetic space no longer shone primarily on you. It had subtly shifted, adjusted to illuminate only where they stood. But that magnificent light, my friends, once belonged to you, and deep down, they knew it. They didn't need to lay a curse upon you. They only needed to stay close enough, long enough, to learn the intricate ways to make you doubt your own inherent worth and brilliance. Have you ever felt, in moments of quiet reflection, that you needed unspoken permission just to experience your own joy? That whenever you dared to share a success or a moment of happiness, the energetic atmosphere around you grew heavier, denser? Or perhaps that every time you achieved something wonderful, someone subtly withdrew or quietly turned their back, almost imperceptibly. That, my brave Leos, is not your imagination playing tricks on you. That is pure energetic feedback. That is your soul, your inner compass, urgently telling you that something in your immediate energetic vicinity is simply not pure, not aligned with your highest good. In ancient spiritual traditions like Buddhist teachings, there's a profound truth that few dare to fully confront. Attachment doesn't solely stem from anger or overt negativity. It also, quite powerfully, arises from a distorted form of love, or more accurately, a possessive desire. Someone may indeed smile warmly at you, yet deep within, they harbor a silent longing to possess the very light you effortlessly carry, the radiance they instinctively know they can never truly hold for themselves. And to subtly steal that light, they often don't have to engage in any overt act. All they have to do is cunningly make you believe you no longer deserve it. You probably didn't notice, dear Leo, when you started to speak a little more softly, or when you stopped sharing the things that truly brought you joy and excitement. You likely didn't perceive the gradual shift when you began to constantly consider their feelings every time you wanted to do something that truly nurtured your own spirit. You didn't notice you had been subtly taken, not by force, but by the sweetest, most insidious kind of blur, an energetic manipulation veiled in what seemed like caring. This individual might be family, a friend, a colleague, someone you genuinely once believed was steadfastly on your side. But here's the telltale pattern. Every time you genuinely shine, they grow quieter, more subdued. Every time you are deeply loved and appreciated, they seem to grow sharper, more critical, even if subtly. Every time you rise, reaching for your highest potential, they invariably find a way to remind you of their wounds, their struggles, subtly pulling your focus back to them. You, with your generous heart, probably didn't interpret this as overt cruelty. Instead, you just felt inexplicably exhausted after spending time with them, inexplicably drained. Not because of conflict, but because your vibrant Leo soul had to shrink its magnificent light so that they wouldn't feel dim in your presence. You genuinely believed this was love, compassion, true understanding. But in truth, my friends, it was the precise moment you began to forget that you too deserved to be fully understood, fully seen, and fully celebrated. You inadvertently gave vast energetic space to someone who never learned how to truly stand in their own light, and who consciously or unconsciously chose to rise by subtly taking a piece of yours. And this, dear Leos, is what leaves you more paralyzed, more subtly wounded than any overt pain ever could. You didn't know how to articulate it, how to name it, without feeling like you were the bad one, the one causing trouble. Because you, as Leos, instinctively know how to forgive long before you learn how to protect your own precious energy. You knew how to empathize deeply before you learned the vital skill of setting clear, firm boundaries. You knew how to offer powerful prayers and good wishes for others long before you ever paused to ask yourself, has anyone ever truly prayed for me in this way? But today, my radiant Leos, you don't have to overtly accuse anyone. You only need to courageously speak the truth you've tried to ignore, perhaps for far too long. This person wasn't a witch in the traditional sense, wielding a magic wand. No, they were a witch of emotions. The kind who knew precisely how to make you shrink your magnificent self while still subtly making you feel like you were being a good person. The kind who cleverly made you carry an invisible burden of guilt, yet simultaneously made you feel lucky to have them by your side. The kind who never quite allowed you to stand fully in the center of your own spotlight, because you, with your inherent generosity, unconsciously relinquish that space yourself. You see, not every shadow screams its presence. Some shadows, dear Leos, only need to whisper at precisely the right moment, and you, out of habit or misconception, will lock yourself away. And here's the truly poignant part. No one but you holds the ultimate key to that very self-made prison. It's not that you weren't strong enough, my beautiful Leos. It's not that you were easily controlled. It's because deep down, you've always believed that true love, true connection, often means sacrifice. This individual, whatever their energetic blueprint, absorbed your light, viewing it as something excessive in you, something they supposedly needed more. But true light, if it's genuinely pure, expands. It doesn't require someone else to dim or step back in order for it to shine. Take a deep, cleansing breath, dear Leo, and gently ask yourself, for whom did I shrink myself? How many times have I stayed silent, suppressing my truth, to preserve a connection that deep down I know is no longer pure, no longer serving my highest good? How many times have I plastered a brave smile on my face to prevent someone else from feeling hurt, only to cry alone when no one was truly there for me? If your heart, your radiant Leo heart, is aching with recognition, then know this: your magnificent soul is ready to articulate, to finally give voice to what your body has carried and silently endured for far too long. And from this sacred moment on, you will no longer need to hide it. It is something that, once clearly named and consciously acknowledged, will begin to release its hold on you. In the next part, you'll discover that this shocking name isn't just about a specific person. It's the name of a recurring energetic pattern that has perhaps lived within you across various lifetimes. You'll understand why this specific individual was never the only one, and why, with one surprisingly simple yet profoundly powerful ritual, you can begin to reclaim everything that was subtly taken. If you already sense, deep in your Leo knowing, who or what this pattern represents, write it down right now as a sacred release in your mind, or even on paper. I no longer protect the silence that once protected her. Beloved Leo, you just thought of a name, didn't you? It might have flashed like a lightning bolt through your chest, and perhaps your logical mind immediately tried to push it away, murmuring, "It can't be her." But your soul, my dear friends, does not lie. And if you are here, listening intently, feeling the resonance of these words, then perhaps it's time to truly understand. That name that momentarily stunned you may never have been solely about a single individual. It's the name of a role, an energetic imprint, a recurring pattern that you, with your generous heart, have unknowingly carried for a long, long time. So long, in fact, that you began to believe it was you. You don't bear her specific name, but you've carried the pain she refused to face. You don't have her face, but you've often found yourself embodying the energetic role she silently passed on to you. You became the one who always understood, the one who patiently endured, the one who was subtly praised for always forgiving. You were the one who knew how to make peace, even when the conflict wasn't your fault. The one who stayed quiet, even when your soul was screaming its truth. The one who stepped back, even when you were the one being subtly pushed out of the light. You genuinely believed you chose that path out of profound love, didn't you, dear Leo? But no, my friends, you chose it because of a deep, ingrained, and often unconscious belief. If I forgive enough, if I sacrifice enough, if I understand enough, then surely they will love me. This she, the one you thought of, might indeed be your mother, your sister, that childhood best friend, or a significant figure from your past. Someone who smiled, yet always skillfully avoided facing their own truth. Someone who held your hand, but perhaps only to keep you close, never quite to truly lift you up and celebrate your ascent. Someone who was deeply wounded, yes, but crucially, never truly chose to heal themselves. And you, with your empathetic nature, often carried that wound for them, like a mirror reflecting their unresolved pain. In Buddhist philosophy, there's a profound teaching. We are the result of what we repeatedly do. If, throughout your life, you repeatedly receive the same kind of energetic imbalance, even if it manifests through different people, if in every significant relationship you find yourself consistently enduring, always giving in, subtly being forgotten or overlooked, then you are not, in essence, living truly different stories. You are, in a deeper sense, living the same story, just with a different cast of actors. Perhaps your mother never offered a genuine apology, or your sister consistently avoided self-reflection. Maybe a close friend kept crying endlessly, subtly compelling you to carry their sorrow. Or a family member perpetually demanded that you concede, always suggesting, "You're the better person, Leo." Or even a co-worker who consistently made you feel as though you had to prove your worth, just so they wouldn't feel small in your vibrant presence. They may all have distinct names, different ages, varied faces, but the underlying energetic frequency, the pattern, is strikingly identical. And what, pray tell, is that recurring frequency, dear Leo? It's the unspoken message. You must shrink your light so they can feel okay. It's the subtle demand. You must carry their emotional weight because they refuse to look within themselves. But listen closely, my radiant Leos. You were not born to be the emotional landfill for wounds others refuse to face. You are not a silent, stoic wall for someone to project their unresolved issues onto, only to walk away and leave you to process it. You are not a perpetual tear wiper for those who repeatedly, perhaps unconsciously, slice at your heart with the convenient excuse, "I didn't mean to." You are quite simply a magnificent soul with an expansive, generous heart. And that, my friends, does not mean you must endure such patterns forever. You once believed that enduring silence, that quiet sacrifice, equated to love. But the cosmic truth is, silence, when offered to the wrong energetic pattern or person, subtly becomes complicity in your own wounding. You genuinely thought that if you were just patient enough, just understanding enough, they would finally truly see you. But you didn't realize that often they weren't blind. They simply chose not to look because they had grown accustomed to you never truly asking for anything in return, never truly demanding to be seen. Sometimes, dear Leo, true betrayal doesn't come from overt, aggressive action. It comes from the insidious way someone subtly convinces you, through repeated behavior, to carry a belief that you are somehow not enough to be chosen, not enough to be fiercely protected, not enough to be loved without constantly having to fight for it, not enough to simply and gloriously be you. They never voiced these sentiments directly, but you felt it, didn't you? You felt it in their dismissive eyes, in their frequent interruptions when you spoke your truth, in the times they fell conspicuously silent when you genuinely needed defending. You felt it in how they always emphasized how hurt they were, but never once paused to truly ask, "How much are you hurting, my dear Leo?" They didn't teach you these patterns with explicit words. They taught you with repeated, ingrained behavior. They taught you that your radiant presence is only truly loved if it shrinks, that your powerful feelings are only valid if they don't, in any way, disturb others, that your immense kindness is only truly worthy when it conveniently serves their sense of peace and comfort. And slowly, subtly, you began to become someone who lives not to disturb anyone, especially them. You began to monitor your magnificent laughter, to hold back your genuine tears, to force a smile while your brave heart was silently breaking. Because unconsciously, you inherited a role, a karmic legacy almost, one that someone passed down to you as if it were your predetermined inheritance. But listen closely, Leo. Not every role is worth inheriting. Not every story truly belongs to you. And the cosmic clock has struck the hour for you to bravely put a definitive period at the end of that script. Take a deep, cleansing breath and genuinely ask your beautiful soul, what role am I currently playing that was never truly mine to begin with? Who was the very first person who made me subtly believe I had to be good or small to be allowed to stay, to be loved? And why, for heaven's sake, am I still continuing their story instead of courageously writing my own magnificent epic? You don't need to feel angry, my friends. We simply need to awaken to this profound truth. Because, as the Buddha wisely taught, karma doesn't end through revenge or retribution. It ends when someone wakes up and bravely stops repeating it. And that magnificent someone, dear Leo, is you. You are potentially the first in this energetic lineage to dare to consciously lay down the old, burdensome role, to return the story that was never truly yours. To powerfully declare, I am no longer the one who carries what isn't mine. I am no longer the mirror someone else uses solely to see themselves. I am the light, and I do not need to shrink for someone else to feel whole. Because here's the ultimate truth, Leos. She, whatever her name or energetic form may be, is simply the latest manifestation of an old karmic pattern. A pattern that completely loses all its power the moment you truly, deeply realize that you owe it nothing and you owe her nothing in terms of your authentic self. What you are about to do next, my dear Leo, requires no elaborate candles, no intricate rituals, no one's external validation. It requires only one thing, a pure, unwavering intention from your magnificent heart. A very simple, yet incredibly powerful ritual, potent enough to sever every invisible chain. You don't need to seek justice from the outside world, because in the radiant light of your awakened truth, there is absolutely nothing to prove. You only need to return what was never truly yours, not out of anger or resentment, but because you absolutely deserve to continue your life no longer burdened by the energetic name of a role that once subtly led you astray. And in the next part, we will perform that sacred ritual together, not with shouting or overt displays, but with the silent, powerful affirmation of your courageous soul. I return to my own story. If you are truly ready to release the role that no longer belongs to your magnificent spirit, write it down right now as a sacred act. I return her story. I return to my own. You don't need an elaborate altar, my dear Leo. You don't need fragrant incense, ethereal smoke, tinkling wind chimes, or complicated ceremonies passed down through generations, as if only a select few are allowed to truly let go. All you need right now is one profound sentence, a sentence you perhaps never dared to speak aloud, a sentence that holds the power to cause everything old, everything stagnant, to crumble. But simultaneously, it is the very sentence that opens the magnificent doorway for your soul to return to its purest, most vibrant innocence. It is a sentence of refusal. Refusal of what, you might ask? Your powerful Leo mind seeking clarity. Refusal of the energetic role you've carried for far too long. Refusal of the pain that was never truly yours to begin with. Refusal of the subtle love that often came disguised as obligation, as expectation, and most importantly, refusal to keep catching the shattered energetic pieces someone else carelessly threw at you, all while subtly implying you were the reason they broke. You used to bravely say, "It's okay," even as your generous heart cracked with every beat. You used to whisper, "I understand," even though that understanding felt like a tightening rope around your very soul. In silence, you once chose to forgive this energetic pattern or this person, but perhaps you never truly forgave yourself for allowing things to spiral so far that you could no longer recognize the magnificent Leo you were before it all began. And today, we begin this sacred ceremony not with bells or ancient chants, but with unwavering, fierce truth. I want you to imagine right now that you are standing completely alone in a vast, empty field. The sky is at dusk, the last radiant light of day lingering, as if the entire universe is holding its breath, patiently waiting for you to make your profound decision. You carry no baggage, no burdens, only a lingering, energetic name. A name that for too long subtly imprisoned you in the role of perpetual healer for someone who, deep down, never truly wanted to heal themselves. That name could be your mother, the one who never explicitly said, "I'm sorry," but always expected your unwavering understanding. It could be your sister, who consistently looked away when you were hurting. It could be a close friend who always seemed to cry louder than you, subtly compelling you to stay silent out of what you thought was love. You now call that name, not in anger, not to cast blame, but with profound, sacred stillness. You look towards that energetic representation, and with all the strength of your Leo soul, you powerfully declare, "You no longer belong to me. I release you, I forgive you, and I choose myself." And in that precise, sacred moment, dear Leo, you will feel the very air around you subtly change. Something dense, something misty that had clung to your magnificent heart will begin to dissolve, like a morning fog finally burned away by the rising sun. You have just spoken the words your soul has waited lifetimes to truly hear. You have just, in this profound act, begun to rewrite your destiny, my beautiful Leo. Not through rebellion or external conflict, but through an internal return to your authentic self. In Buddhist teachings, there is a powerful image. A person is struck by an arrow. They are in pain. Yet instead of immediately removing the arrow, they remain fixated on asking, "Who shot it? Was it on purpose? Did they ever truly love me?" But you today, you bravely choose to pull the arrow out. Jesus, in his final profound moment, also said, "Father, forgive them." Not because they necessarily deserved it in a human sense, but because he knew that to carry their ignorance, their unresolved actions, into eternity was to allow darkness one more turn of the karmic wheel. Leo, you have come too far on this magnificent journey to turn back now. You have endured too long to keep pretending, and you have grown deep enough, courageous enough to truly understand this. Letting go is not failure. Letting go is the powerful emotional lock you finally, mercifully, unfasten for yourself. You once believed you were born to heal her, or this pattern, but you, my radiant soul, are not a perpetual soul doctor on retainer for someone else's unaddressed wounds. You are the light, and light never, ever has to bow or diminish itself. Close your eyes for a moment. Softly, gently say her name, or the name of the pattern. There's no need to repeat it, just once. Then, Allow that energetic echo to simply drift into the cosmic winds. Then feel your voice, your inner voice, grow lighter, unburdened. You will feel it, something subtle, yet profoundly real, leaving you, not with noise, not with resistance, but like a heavy burden you had forgotten you were even carrying on your back. From this moment on, you no longer carry your magnificent light into someone else's darkness. You courageously return to yourself. And can you feel it, dear Leo? That newly empty space within you is already beginning to be filled with a new kind of light. Not a light given to you by external forces, but the pure, inherent light that was always there, only subtly hidden beneath energetic roles that were never truly yours to play. Dear Leo, you are not a failure. You have simply, gloriously awakened. And in the next and final chapter, that light will return to you fully, truly, in all its radiant glory. I will reveal to you why she was perhaps always subtly afraid of your inherent radiance. Because light never has to prove itself. It simply is. And if there's a part of your magnificent heart that just felt a profound release, if you feel even one breath lighter right now, then know this: you have already begun to powerfully step out of what subtly held you back for so many years. If your heart just vibrated with a silent nod, write this down as a sacred vow to your own magnificent soul. My soul has come home. Let those words be more than a mere sentence. Let them become the wide-open doorway your radiant destiny now bravely walks through. Beloved Leo, understand this profound truth. Genuine peace never arrives with a polite knock at your door. It doesn't come draped in applause from others, nor is it granted through someone else's blessing or approval. True, lasting peace simply waits patiently for you to stop asking for permission to be your magnificent self. And now, dear Leo, you stand on the precipice of something truly extraordinary, something that has perhaps never been fully named or experienced in your lifetime. The energetic influence, the she or the pattern, is no longer subtly clinging. There are no more shadows silently dimming your shine. No more doubtful eyes you once unconsciously borrowed and turned inward against yourself. You no longer energetically belong to the places where you once felt compelled to shrink your radiant presence. You don't need to overextend your generous spirit just to feel inherently worthy. You don't need to keep playing the role of the perpetually understanding one just to survive relationships subtly filled with invisible energetic blades. You are walking away, dear Leo. And here's the powerful, liberating truth. No one is truly holding you back. No one is genuinely questioning your departure. No one is truly rejecting you. Because this time, you're not leaving in order to be accepted or validated by others. You are leaving because you have courageously remembered who you truly were before it all began, before the subtle dimming, before the unconscious role-playing. And can you hear it, my friends? The sound of your own footsteps, no longer heavy with unspoken burdens. The earth beneath you no longer resists your journey, as if it instinctively knows you have powerfully returned to your true, vibrant frequency. No one is truly watching. No one is truly suspicious. Because, in many ways, no one truly notices the disappearance of a mask you gently yet definitively took off, without hatred, without needing a single apology from anyone. Dear Leo, this is your magnificent rebirth, and you don't need to fight anyone to powerfully return to your authentic self. You have waited a long, long time for this profound peace, perhaps viewing it as a reward granted only after you had been good enough, patient enough, selfless enough. But do you know this, my friends? This deep, inherent peace never truly left you. It was simply standing still, patiently waiting for you to stop asking for external approval, waiting for you to stop softening your powerful voice, even in your own sacred space, waiting for you to stop folding away your magnificent dreams just because someone else couldn't quite comprehend your grand vision, waiting for you to stop apologizing just because you bravely dared to shine your light. In astrology, Leo, you are the magnificent sign of the self, of creation, of vibrant expression, of the inner child, and of courageous leadership. It is the sign that, when fully embodied, understands that authentic light does not require external validation. It simply is. And that, dear Leo, is your most sacred gift, immense strength enveloped in radiant gentleness. There's something else you need to know now, not to place blame, but to gain profound understanding. She, or this energetic pattern, was subtly afraid of you, not because you ever did anything wrong, but because you inherently carried a light, a raw, undeniable radiance that she had never been brave enough to truly face within herself. That pure light doesn't shout, it doesn't scream for attention, it simply exists, and in that pure existence alone, she perhaps felt lost, felt small, felt somehow unchosen. So, she did the only thing she knew how to do. She subtly tried to drown you in her doubts. She subtly slowed you with advice that sounded like genuine concern, but was in fact energetically limiting. She expertly turned you into the good one by subtly feeding your deep, Leo fear of being left behind or unloved. But listen, my beloved Leos, your inherent gentleness was never, ever a weakness. It was the very light that, in its unwavering presence, subtly forced the witch to finally reveal its true nature. And now that this pattern is released, now that the energetic she is no longer subtly clinging, who will you truly become? That is not a rhetorical question, my friends. It is the profound question your soul has been whispering to you for years, yearning for an answer. Who will you become when you no longer have to contort your magnificent self to please someone else's energetic needs? Who will you become if you no longer apologize for bravely choosing joy, for pursuing your passions? Who will you become when your very first, courageous steps no longer require anyone's external approval to be inherently right? You know, sometimes the only thing that truly needs forgiveness is the past version of you that for a time forgot you absolutely deserve a gentle, joyful, and radiant life. You used to accept so many energetically depleting things just because you might have thought, maybe I'm too sensitive, maybe I ask for too much, maybe I'm really the one at fault here. But you were never wrong, dear Leo. You simply lived too long in an energetic world where your magnificent light was subtly treated like a burden, an inconvenience for others. So now, breathe slowly, deeply, and powerfully, and ask your awakened soul, what would my life truly look like if I stopped apologizing for being inherently radiant? Dear Leo, you no longer have to play a role that isn't authentically yours. You don't have to be excellent in an external, people-pleasing way to be profoundly loved. You don't have to carry everything just to feel a sense of belonging. You don't have to stay silent, stifling your truth, just to keep the peace for others. You can choose radiance that doesn't ask permission. You can choose peace that doesn't need external validation. You can choose an existence that doesn't demand to be understood by everyone else. You can simply, gloriously be yourself. And that, my friends, that is exactly why they once subtly tried to dim your light. But they can't anymore, because now you have truly, powerfully seen yourself. And in the very final culminating part of this journey, I will walk you through a sacred ritual, not to close a chapter, but to finally allow you to stand fully, magnificently, in the pure light no one can ever truly steal from you again. You have walked far enough. You have let go of enough. Now, dear Leo, is the powerful, glorious time to rise in the name that was always, always yours. If you feel it deep in your Leo core, that it's time to step fully into this radiant light, then whisper this powerful truth into the universe. I am the light she could never steal. This final part will be a ritual of profound rebirth, not through tears of sorrow, but through a joyous soul declaration your magnificent heart has waited its whole life to make. Leo, this was never truly a story about her. It was always, always the heroic journey of you quietly, powerfully returning to your magnificent, authentic self. There's no need for shouting, no need for external miracles from anyone else. Because you, dear Leo, you are the miracle. You are no longer a soul subtly begging for a place to belong. You are the one who courageously chose the light, even when that light once subtly terrified others. No curse, no energetic pattern holds you anymore. No past wound defines you now. From today on, you walk not to escape, but to powerfully affirm. You have chosen yourself. And if your heart just vibrated with a knowing nod, if your soul just exhaled deeply after a lifetime of carrying unseen burdens, then write this down as a sacred act of a brand new beginning. I have called my soul home, and it answered, wishing you a new path, gentle, free, and utterly filled with the magnificent light you've carried across lifetimes, because you, my radiant Leo, are the still point that opens the gateway to eternal healing and boundless self-expression. I am ready for you to check this, my friend. Let me know if we need to refine any of these cosmic truths.